Welcome to the Daily Plunge. We are in the book of Joshua, chapter 4. We hear about how the whole nation of Israel has crossed over the Jordan that God had made dry, right? The waters piled up in another place, and they walk across on dry land. And how many people? It's like 600,000. And then the Lord has instructed Joshua, pick 12 leaders, have each tribe pick a leader, and they're to go back into the Jordan and pick up a big rock. And it has to be a big rock. It has to go up on their shoulder, nothing small, something humongous that they had to carry with their shoulder. And what is the purpose of this heavy stone? Well, first off, it's something somewhat permanent, not easily moved. And these 12 stones are to create an altar, as it were, a remembrance of what God has done here. And why? He says, so that when your children ask you about what were things like in the past, what did God do, you are to tell the story. You are to preach to them the gospel. Because when we preach the word to our children, to our family, when we tell them the promises of God, we're not just speaking about some past, but we're speaking about what God is doing. And that word creates faith. They believe in God because they've heard what God is doing, what God has done. And one part of that is to remember what God has done when we're going through times of darkness. And that's part of the purpose of these 12 stones when Israel is struggling and they're losing perhaps their faith, is to go and look at those stones, remember what God has done. And to think about how so often we forget the stories that we've been told. How often we forget our own stories of where God has been faithful, where God has done something miraculous. And we're like the people out in the desert grumbling, what have you done for me lately, right? I want you to ask yourself, what ridiculous task is God telling you to do so that you will have a sign, well, even more than a sign, that you'll have stones that will preach to you the word of God? What is the ridiculous task that God is asking you to do? Maybe it's stones, maybe it's putting up a cross. What is it that God is asking you to do so that the word of God can be recalled in your life and you remember God is faithful, that God does miracles, that God leads people through what was supposed to be a flooded river. And just as God brought them through a flood stage river, God will bring you through a flood. Well, thanks, my friends. Have a blessed day.